There is a $9 billion industry that depends on you never learning what this video is about to show you. Every spring, roughly 80% of American households walk into a garden center and come home with bottles of chemicals to spray on their vegetables. The pest arrives, they spray, it comes back, they spray again, and the companies that sell those bottles collect another $3 billion from the United States alone every single year with remarkable consistency, because the business model was never designed to solve the problem permanently. A product that eliminated the need for itself would be a catastrophically bad business. What generates reliable revenue is a product that manages the problem just enough to ensure you come back next season and buy more. 300 miles west of Manhattan, in the farmlands of Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, there is a community of over 44,000 people who have been growing food for more than 3 centuries without purchasing a single bottle of synthetic pesticide, not one. Their gardens don't just survive without those products, they thrive. Fuller tomato plants, cleaner squash vines, pest damage that is a fraction of what most American gardeners deal with every summer, achieved through methods that cost almost nothing, require no specialized products, and have been proven in the most rigorous possible way, continuous, documented, multi-generational success on the same land. The question worth asking honestly is not whether the Amish approach works. 300 years of evidence settles that. The question is why the rest of the agricultural world is only now beginning to prove with peer-reviewed research what this community figured out through patient observation centuries ago. The answer to that question changes how you think about every bottle on the garden center shelf, the science that explains why this works, the story that cracked this wide open, the one that connects traditional Amish practice to modern agricultural science, belongs to a man named John Kemp. If you haven't heard his name, that is about to change. Kemp grew up on a small fruit and vegetable farm in northeast Ohio. His father was the regional pesticide supplier. Their family tried every new chemical first and recommended it to neighboring farmers. They were spraying more than almost anyone in the area. And between 2002 and 2004, they lost upwards of 70% of their 4 primary crops 3 years in a row, despite using every pesticide available to them. The plants were being eaten alive. Nothing in a bottle could stop it. In 2004, the Kemp family rented a neighboring field from a dairy farmer. This field had never been treated with pesticides. It had been in a simple 4-year rotation of corn, small grains and hay. They planted cantaloupe across both fields, the treated Kemp soil and the untreated dairy field, with rows running right across the property line. Same variety, same planting date, same fertilizer, same fungicide applications. At harvest on the Kemp family's intensively sprayed soil, 80% of the leaves were covered in powdery mildew. On the dairy farmer's untreated soil, there was 0 infection, not 5%, not 10%, 0. A knife line straight down the middle of the field where the 2 soils met. Identical plants 2 feet apart, one destroyed, one perfectly healthy. Kemp spent 2 years trying to understand why. This 18-year-old who had never gone past 8th grade walked into his local public library and began reading university textbooks on biology, chemistry, plant physiology and agronomy. He ordered obscure research volumes from Germany and France through interlibrary loan. What he found was extraordinary. Plants have an immune system, not a metaphorical one, a literal, multi-layered biological immune system. And that immune system operates on a specific nutritional foundation. When a plant has adequate and balanced mineral nutrition, specifically iron, manganese, copper, zinc, nitrogen in the right form, and sufficient magnesium, it achieves complete photosynthesis. When that happens, the plant converts all of its soluble nitrates into complete proteins, and this is the part that rewrites everything. Larval insects, the caterpillars, hornworms, and loopers, and sucking insects like aphids, whiteflies, and thrips feed on soluble nitrates. They literally cannot digest complete proteins. Their digestive systems are too simple for the task. So when a plant is healthy enough to convert all its nitrogen into complete proteins, those insects land on it, attempt to feed, find nothing they can process, and leave. The plant has not killed them, it has not repelled them chemically, it has simply removed their food source at the cellular level. The pest starves in the presence of abundance. This shift in plant resistance can happen within 24 to 48 hours of the right minerals becoming available. Within 2 days, a plant can move from pest magnet to effectively pest-proof, not because anything was sprayed on it, because it became too healthy to be worth eating. Kemp founded Advancing Eco-Agriculture in 2006. By 2024, it was advising farmers on over 4 million acres across North America. Peer-reviewed research from Cornell, Penn State, and multiple European universities confirms that mineral-balanced, biologically active soils produce plants with stronger cell walls, higher concentrations of defensive compounds, and measurably greater pest resistance. The Amish understood this through observation across generations. Modern science is now confirming the mechanism. The soil is not just where the plant lives. The soil is the plant's immune system. Step 1. Building the foundation. Before any other practice, before any other technique, before any other intervention, this is the work that makes everything else possible. Every spring, before transplanting anything, spread 2 to 3 inches of well-aged compost across the garden beds and work it into the top 4 to 6 inches of soil. If that compost includes aged horse or cow manure, the microbial diversity it introduces is even greater. The Amish do not buy bags of synthetic fertilizer. They build soil with compost, cover crops and animal manure on the same plots of land, year after year for generations. The result is soil that grows plants healthy enough to defend themselves. One application will not transform a garden. 2 or 3 seasons of consistent soil building will produce a change that is visible and measurable. Thicker stems, darker green foliage, and plants that bounce back from minor pest feeding with a speed that well-fed plants demonstrate and nutrient-depleted ones cannot. This is not a separate topic from pest control. It is the same topic. Weak soil grows weak plants. Weak plants are a dinner invitation for every pest within a quarter mile. Step 2. Companion planting as olfactory warfare. Most American gardens are planted in neat single-crop rows. Tomatoes in one section, beans in another, squash on the far end. It looks organized. It makes harvesting straightforward. But to a pest, a long row of one crop is a highway with no obstacles and no confusion. The chemical signals that host plants release into the air guide pest insects directly and efficiently to the crop. Amish gardeners do the opposite deliberately. They mix aromatic herbs and flowers directly among their vegetables, and the reason is rooted in insect biology. Most garden pests navigate to their host plants by smell, following the chemical signatures that those plants release. When host plants are surrounded by strong-smelling companions, what entomologists call olfactory confusion results. The pest cannot find the tomatoes because the basil, marigolds, and dill are overwhelming the signal. It is like trying to hear someone whisper your name in a stadium of 60,000 people. The specific pairings matter. For every 3 to 4 tomato plants, one basil plant, tucked 8 to 10 inches from the base, repels aphids, whiteflies, and tomato hornworms. Generations of Amish gardeners have planted these two together. Between rows of cabbage, broccoli or kale, dill or cilantro, every 12 to 14 inches repels cabbage moths and imported cabbage worms. And when those herbs flower, they attract parasitic wasps and hoverflies, which are voracious predators of aphids and caterpillars, so you are simultaneously repelling one category of pest while recruiting the natural enemies of another. Around bed borders, French marigolds, the smaller French varieties, not the large African types, planted 10 to 12 inches apart, release a compound from their roots called alpha-terthionyl that suppresses root knot nematodes. Their scent above ground deters whiteflies and squash bugs. Multiple agricultural universities have confirmed this in controlled studies. It is not tradition maintained for tradition's sake. It is centuries of practice that arrived at a conclusion the science is now explaining. Step 3. Building the beneficial insect army. The Amish understand something about insects that took most conventional gardeners decades to relearn. A healthy garden is not a garden without insects. It is a garden with the right insects in sufficient numbers to do the work. A single ladybug consumes up to 50 aphids in a single day. One lacewing larva can eat 200 aphids in its brief lifetime. Parasitic wasps lay their eggs inside hornworms and cabbage worms, killing them from the inside out. Ground beetles patrol the soil surface at night, hunting slugs, cutworms and grubs while the gardener sleeps. These are not minor contributors. They are the unpaid, round-the-clock pest management team that every garden already has the capacity to support if the habitat exists for them to live, breed, and remain present through the season. The practical tool for building that population is what the Amish call an insect strip, a section of the garden, even just a row 2 feet wide along one border, planted densely with the flowers and herbs that beneficial insects need for nectar and pollen. Sweet alyssum at the front because it stays low and blooms continuously all season. Yarrow and dill alternating behind it at 10 to 12-inch spacing, fennel at the back if space allows. The key is continuous bloom from spring through fall, so the beneficial population always has food available and always has reason to stay. Within weeks of the first flowers opening, that strip buzzes with hoverflies, parasitic wasps, lacewings, and ladybugs. Once those populations establish, they patrol the entire garden. The Amish also leave intentionally unmanaged areas near the garden, a patch of clover along the fence, an unmowed strip at the boundary, a pile of stones where ground beetles can shelter and overwinter. These are not signs of neglect. They are habitat. Beneficial insects need somewhere to live and breed. A perfectly manicured garden with bare soil between every row has hung a vacancy sign for the creatures that would otherwise work for free. Step 4, the morning walk. Every Amish gardener in Lancaster County talks about the morning walk the way most people talk about breakfast, not as a gardening technique, as a daily rhythm so natural it requires no decision. Every morning, 15 to 20 minutes before the day begins in earnest, a small bucket, half filled with water, and a squirt of dish soap. Start at one end of the garden and work through every row, not admiring the plants, but actually examining them, turning leaves over, running eyes along stems, checking the undersides of squash foliage. And when a pest is found, it gets picked off by hand and dropped into the soapy water. The reason this works better than any spray is timing. Most catastrophic pest damage does not happen because of 1 or 2 insects. It happens because a small population was allowed to build unchecked until intervention became reactive rather than preventive. A single tomato hornworm strips an entire branch in 48 hours. A pair of squash bugs lays hundreds of eggs in a single week. By the time the damage is visible enough to prompt action, the population is already 3 generations deep. The morning walk catches problems while they are still problems rather than disasters. 2 hornworms on Monday becomes 0 hornworms on Monday instead of 20 by Friday. On tomatoes, look for hornworms along upper stems and watch for dark droppings on lower leaves as evidence of feeding above. On squash and cucumbers, flip leaves and look for small clusters of bronze-colored eggs on the undersides. Scraping those off now saves a genuine crisis 2 weeks later. On brassicas, watch for the white butterflies hovering and landing, because where they land, eggs follow within hours. After 2 seasons of this practice, it becomes second nature. 15 minutes of quiet before the day accelerates, and a level of connection to what is actually happening in the garden that no spray program ever provided. Step 5. Trap cropping. Instead of trying to keep pests away from the garden entirely, the Amish sometimes invite them in deliberately and then send them to the wrong address. The logic is elegant. Plant something the pest finds more attractive than the main crop, position it at the perimeter, and let the pest choose it voluntarily while the vegetables you actually care about go undisturbed. Nasturtiums are the classic example. Aphids are far more attracted to nasturtiums than to beans, peppers, or tomatoes. Planted in a ring around the outside of the garden or at the ends of rows, they draw aphid populations away from the main crop and concentrate them in a predictable location. Leave the nasturtiums in place and the ladybug population from the insect strip finds the concentrated aphid colony and eliminates it. The trap crop attracted the pest. The beneficial insects followed the pest. The vegetables sat untouched in the middle. For flea beetles on eggplant and young brassicas, a row of radishes planted 2 feet in front of the main crop draws flea beetle populations away from the plants that matter. For squash vine borers and cucumber beetles, 2 blue Hubbard squash plants at the far corners of the garden function as decoys that magnetically attract both pest species away from the main planting. You are not trying to save the blue Hubbard. You are using it as misdirection, and it works with a reliability that no spray achieves because it works with insect biology rather than against it. Step 6. The kitchen spray. For moments when pest pressure is heavier than the system alone can manage, the Amish use a homemade deterrent spray that takes 10 minutes and costs nothing beyond what is already in the kitchen. 4 to 5 garlic cloves and 2 hot peppers, cayenne or any hot variety available, chopped and steeped in a quart of warm water for at least 12 hours. Strain through cheesecloth into a spray bottle. Add 1 teaspoon of plain dish soap, not detergent, just simple soap, which helps the spray adhere to leaves and breaks down the waxy coating of soft-bodied insects on contact. Spray directly on affected plants, focusing on leaf undersides where most pests concentrate. Apply in early morning or late evening, never in direct midday sun, where the soap component can cause minor leaf burn. 1 application deters for 5 to 7 days. Reapply after heavy rain. This spray does not kill on contact the way synthetic chemicals do. It makes plants smell and taste unpleasant to pests, which move on to easier targets. Combined with healthy soil, companion planting, beneficial habitat, and daily monitoring, that deterrence is usually sufficient. This is one component of a system, not a standalone solution, which is the fundamental difference between the Amish approach and what the pesticide industry wants you to believe is necessary. Step 7. The cardboard collar. The simplest technique on this list, the one that produces the most immediate, most measurable result for the least possible investment. The one that made me genuinely frustrated with myself for not thinking of it decades earlier. When transplanting young seedlings into the garden, place a collar made from a cardboard tube around the base of each plant, pushed about 1 inch into the soil with 2 inches remaining above the surface. Old toilet paper rolls are the standard tool. Paper towel rolls cut into shorter sections work equally well. This collar does 2 specific things. First, it creates a physical barrier against cutworms, the soil surface larvae that crawl at night and chew clean through the stems of young transplants, producing the toppled seedling by morning that most gardeners blame on wind, slugs, or general bad fortune without ever identifying the actual cause. Cutworms cannot climb the collar and cannot chew through it. The damage that was silently taking 5 to 8 transplants per spring disappears entirely. Second, and this is the elegant part, the cardboard breaks down naturally over 4 to 6 weeks. That is precisely the window during which a young transplant stem hardens to the point where cutworms can no longer damage it. The protection exists exactly as long as the plant needs it, and dissolves when the plant no longer does. No plastic, no waste, no disposal, no cost. The principle that ties everything together. There is a concept running through every aspect of Amish farming life, the idea of working with natural order rather than overriding it, of trusting that the system has a balance built into it that predates synthetic intervention by millions of years. When you spray a pesticide, even an organic one, you override the system. The pest population drops temporarily. But so do the ladybugs, the lacewings, the parasitic wasps, and the ground beetles that were already managing those pests for free. When those populations collapse, the pest rebounds into a garden that has just lost its natural defense force. The next infestation is worse than the one that prompted the spraying. And the bottle gets purchased again. The Amish do not fight nature. They arrange it. They build soil so plants can build their own immunity. They plant companions so pests cannot navigate to their targets. They create habitats so beneficial insects have reasons to stay. They walk the garden daily so nothing escalates unchecked. They use trap crops to redirect what they cannot prevent. And when they need a little additional help, they mix something from the kitchen that deters without destroying the system that was already working. Build the soil, plant the companions, create the habitat, walk the garden every morning, redirect with trap crops, mix the kitchen spray when needed, put a cardboard collar around every transplant this spring. 300 years of evidence on the same land, the science catching up to confirm the mechanism. The only missing piece is you trying it. Drop a comment and tell me which of these you are starting with first. I read every single one.